Stardate -301.821.95. Welcome to Star Trek Discovery Pod, a kind of smart, kind of funny podcast covering new and classic Trek. I'm your deep in the heart of Texas, Captain Mariah Gossett. With me on the view screen we have
Clyde Haynes. Don't be a cantaloupe, be a cantaloupe.
Oh no, he took mine.
It happened. Badgie. Welcome, Paul.
I'm Paul Fatachet, and I am your guy who can't pun for any fun. That's so bad.
It's okay, Paul. All is forgiven. Tonight we have a jam-packed episode. We're talking about the season 3 finale of Lower Decks, The Stars at Night, and the mid-season relaunch of Prodigy, episode 11, Asylum. But first, we just have a couple of reminders. Paul, can you tell people where they can find us on the internet as a podcast?
Yes, listeners, we ask you to subscribe to our podcast on Apple, Spotify, YouTube. All the links are at StarTrekPod.co. And if you love our content and would like to help us, join our Patreon for just $2 per episode at patreon.com/StarTrekPod.
Yes.
I didn't read that at all.
You got it. It's happening. Clyde, how else can people engage with us this evening if they are watching on the live stream?
If you're watching on the live stream, then we invite you to participate with us, hang out, tell us how you feel, give us a comment, ask a question. And to do that, all you have to do is type capital P, capital O, capital D, capital pod into the chat, and we will take a look at your comment. And in a moment, we're going to talk about those things that really stood out to us. We have a special word for them. Just type capital H, capital F, capital HF into the pod, and we will take a look at yours.
Correct. Okay, y'all. Not gonna dilly-dally. We got a lot to cover this evening.
Whew.
We're gonna jump right into the Lower Decks finale. Finish up this season with a Callie kick-ass review of The Stars at Night, which was directed by Jason Zurich and written by Mike McMahon. And I think you all might know what time it is. It is time for some
Hot freaks! Hot freaks!
time for some hot freaks.
Hot freaks.
Paul, what did you think about this one? You weren't here last week.
I wasn't here last week, and last week's episode I loved a lot. But this episode, I loved even more. It was everything I wanted in an episode. It even had like a callback to the episode, the bird episode at the very end, which we'll talk about. And I was like, oh yes, it all connects.
It all connects. I thought you might like this episode in particular, Paul, because you were defending Top Gun the other week, and this felt very Top Gunny.
Yeah, I know. It was great. It was great when, like, after we signed off, you go like, okay, you guys went, you know what, Paul? Maybe next episode you just take off. You're gonna be putting the brig for like an episode.
Putting the brig for an episode. Clyde, what did you think of tonight's Lower Decks?
I liked it. I think as a standalone episode, if this episode had happened 4 weeks ago, I would have loved it. The question that I think I've been asked by a number of people is, did this sufficiently wrap everything up and bring all the episodes where we were kind of had issues with the questions about or seemed like, what is this? Did this make it? Was the payoff there? And I don't know that the payoff was there for all of the stuff that we've been through, but it was a good episode. And one of my favorite moments was the moment where Mariner walks back into the 10 forward lounge, and Jennifer looks up and she has that face, right? It's just that there's a face, and it's like, yep, no more canoodling with you. You messed up. You know you messed up. So like that, all in all, I liked it. I love, shout out to the Burbank and the Sherman Oaks. I was really waiting for the North Hollywood, but no North Hollywood love. So I thought that was kind of cool. There was a moment where the first watch, I was kind of emotional. Like I was like,
I was
man,
too at that
that
point.
was.
Like I was like,
And so there's some moments that I really liked. I thought it did tie up a lot, which is hard to do in 24 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, liked it. Didn't need to go through all the stuff I needed to go through to like it though.
interesting. Mariah,
Yeah.
what did you think, Captain?
I really liked this episode. I thought it hit all the points of a Lower Decks episode that I really enjoy. There's lots of laughs. It somehow brings so much story in 24 minutes that I feel like an inadequate storyteller and want to figure out how to make more stories last 24 minutes because I think it's an impressive feat. Everything that they fit in. I thought they did a good job wrapping up quite a few of the storylines from this season, but I'm glad there's some threads left for us going into next season. I always like looking forward to the journey continuing. I thought it was one of the more successful finales for me of Lower Decks so far.
Of the three.
Of the three, I know, so many to pick from, but I feel like they continue to deliver at a consistently good level, and I think that is I'm having a good time. I have like no real complaints, and I feel like that's like a great place to come from, and I had a good time watching it. And what else do I really want from a piece of entertainment right now?
You say that, but your tone is like, but I'm not saying that there is a but. I'm just saying your tone.
I don't have any. I don't have any buts this episode.
I feel like we've been here before.
That's not true.
I feel like we've been here before, Mariah, where you said, I don't have anything to say. Like it's been good. And then 10 minutes into the pod, it all comes out.
Yeah, so I gotta think about. I can't. It's a hot freak. We gotta get the baseline. The baseline is I had a good time.
We gotta let it cool off.
Yes. I had a good time. I enjoyed it. I have no major nits to pick. I have a few nits to pick, and that is it.
See? That's it.
But we will make our way through this episode. Let's check out what some of the other hot freaks are from those in the chat. We've got hot freak from Karen Lee. It's T'Lyn, and she is rocking. We do get a T'Lyn.
100 agree. 100%.
Yes, but in the last 2 minutes of the episode.
We got to have setup for next season, Clyde. We already know it's coming.
I'm all for it, but I'm just saying we've been looking for T'Lyn since episode 1. And like last 2 minutes of the episode, I don't know if that counts. Just saying. I think great setup for next season. Great setup for next season. I can't wait.
Kian says best space battle we've seen yet in any of the new Trek shows. Lots of pew pew.
Pew pew indeed. Pew pew.
Best.
We had a warp core ejection, Clyde.
That's true. Facts. Facts. Yes.
Facts from Shax.
Facts from Shax. Hot freak from Chippy. This is amazing. I can't even pick a favorite spot. There are so many. The impressions were spot on. So many things. T'Lyn and Tendi will be so fun. I got choked up when the Callies all arrived. We've got Michael. So are the Texas class ships all controlled by Badgie? The AI voice wasn't the same as Badgie's. No, it was all programmed to sound, I thought, like Buenamigo. Evil Buenamigo.
Well, here's the interesting thing about that. His first name is Les Buenamigo. And I was like, so not good friend? Like less than a good friend. I thought that was interesting. Okay, that was deep.
Mall Amigo.
Mall Amigo is really what it is.
Yeah.
And we didn't get an Austin.
We didn't, but do we really want a bad Austin ship?
No.
They all come to South by Southwest and have a good time.
Yes. Though, what does that say about the Corpus Christi and the Alito? Anyway,
the Dallas.
The Dallas.
And the Dallas. Yes.
Hot freak. The apology from Freeman was trash. I'm sorry for suspecting you. How about apologize for thinking Mariner telling the truth was what was wrong? That will be one of my nits to pick later. We'll talk about it.
I will second that. But like we can move on.
And finally, went from lolling at Boiler's rapid fire roster of Cali ships to emotional at their support. Agreed. Okay.
There was one more.
Okay.
Did you catch? Oh wait.
4 epaulets. Oh,
Yes.
and Mariner is Indiana Jones. Yes.
Yep,
Yes. I love that. I mean, as a big, not just Indiana Jones, as a big Raiders of the Lost Ark fan, I thought that was a great kind of
It was a
line.
fun.
Nod.
I want to get like a good high res like image of that swing because there's like a bunch of stuff in the background that I'm sure is just like riddled with like fun animator Easter eggs. I know they're all in there. But this episode opens with the threat of the California class being replaced by the Texas class ships, and a challenge is set. A line that made me laugh really hard at the top here was Hans just told me the Phalosian and tactical girlfriend Vedic heard that Starfleet Command is shuttering the Cali class and replacing it with drones. And then they confirmed that it was Tal Guy who has the best gossip.
That was a good one.
And then we have Boimler doing his shouts to Jack Quaid. Those impressions of his other cast members was very funny and made me giggle.
I did think the same thing. I was like, Jack Quaid is on it. Like this is one of those great moments.
And then of course, Shax's classic sitcom trope. Shax walks in and here's the impression of himself and gets very upset. Although I'm wondering why he was coming to Boimler to fix his phaser.
I think he was coming to Rutherford, the group, but because like normally, so the bit there is like Shax comes in, he gets sad, he walks away, and he starts tearing up, kind of thing. And normally I'm going like, oh, that's such a low hanging fruit joke. But for whatever reason, in this episode, every time they did it, I feel like, oh, that's great. And I know it's like it's so low hanging that it's on the ground, and yet I'm going like, oh, fruit.
It's here. I'm ready. And we get a challenge set as a way for Captain Freeman to try to save the entirety of the Cali class. I do like the stakes in this episode feel very high, very out of Lower Decker's hands, but they are involved because this is literally an all hands on deck situation. I think my favorite moment though from the like montage of getting ready is the Frakes chair demonstration.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Hilarious, absolutely hilarious. Like that was just a moment of like that's an inside joke for Star Trek lovers everywhere. Like, yes, this is part of what you have to do to get ready is sit down extra hard around the chair.
Mm-hmm. Michael L. pointed out my other favorite line from that one, if I can get my mouse to work. Okay. Billups, I want to see Commander data level work here, people. Those isolator chips better be a blur.
What I love about that line is that I had just recently rewatched. I'm rewatching like old, like I guess Next Generation, and I just watched that episode. I showed my wife. I go like, oh, now this is an episode. It's the second episode, so it's a little cringy. Like first gen can be cringy, and this does not, dodge that. But but here we go, and just watching Data put the isolator chips in, I go like, oh, they're just digging deep. They're digging deep into the canon.
So I admittedly have not actually seen the new Top Gun movie, but I understand the premise is traditional plane like fighter jets versus drones. Is that correct?
No.
Okay.
That is a good like synopsis for an old Jamie Foxx, Jessica Biel
Stealth, baby. Stealth, baby. That came out before Ray. That came out after Ray, but it was made before Ray. And like in the old poster, like Jamie Foxx was like to the left of whatever his name, the lead of the movie was. And when he won the Oscar for Ray, they shifted him to the center. So when Stealth came out, it's a Jamie Foxx movie, except he dies like within the first third.
Never let it be said that I will refuse to watch any action movie whatsoever on the planet.
But what did y'all think of Freeman's challenge to these drone ships?
You go first, Clyde.
I was gonna say it didn't feel smooth, but needed, right? Like it definitely a plot device, but it made sense. It's again, we're back to this point where Freeman is defending the honor of the Cali class, right? Like there is this just everybody's always against us. And she has all this belief in the Cali class ship that she's going, we can beat you because it's about us and who we are and not the technology. And so this is your traditional, we've got heart and spunk and moxie. This is Rudy. This is, it doesn't matter how big and strong you are. We are David taking on Goliath. Whatever trope theme you want, that's what it was. And so I was okay with it, but I was just like, let's get to the action. Which is weird because usually I'm all about the tech and I want to see the new tech and the new toys.
I mean, go ahead, Paul.
I was going to say that for me, this is probably where I am the less excited about is Freeman in general, because like I feel like in this season, I go like, "Are you a bad captain?" Like I because she puts them in situations where I go like, I don't know if this is really what I want from a Starfleet captain. Like like a lot of things seem a little personal. Things are like like kicking off Mariner without even listening to her, kind of thing. It seemed like from the previous episode, it seemed kind of like impulsive in a way that that is not to my Picard standard. That said, like all captains are sort of different in their own right, and I totally accepted it. But like I think I'm more a little bit with Clyde, where it's like, okay, this is a plot device. It's not actually coming as much from like realism, Star Trek realism.
I did think, to me, like watching Captain Freeman essentially lean on her team to know that they were all going to deliver what she needed them to deliver, and it ended up actually being true, right? Like she put her entire crew to the test, and they passed with flying colors on this particular sort of test that they've set up against these drones. I do think it's interesting, like the commentary that the show is providing right now, right? Like, I don't know if y'all have seen, I mean, there's like a bunch of like the AI bot tries to write a movie, the AI bot generated artwork, AI, like AI kind of coming more and more into the fold. And like, what does that do to, the workforce going forward? And I feel a lot of people feel that same pressure. So I think it's interesting to see it play out even in this like future space where we have seen AI sometimes flourish in the cases of like data, right? Sure. And then we have it completely destructive.
Well, one of the little touches I loved about this episode when it dealt with the Alito is like, the graphic that you use, the little lines, from the Alito, it comes from an episode of like a original series where Richard Daystrom, the guy who founded the Daystrom Institute, came up with a ship, like basically the elite, the Texas class. Basically, here's this computer that's going to automate all Starship called M5, and that was the graphic that it used. So I was going like, oh, they just like if you were a Star Trek, deep diver, you go like, oh, this is going to go bad the moment you see it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's already a bad role. It's going to go bad. Yeah.
Well, I think the minute we get into a situation where there's technology that is theoretically better than human, if you have more than one of them, it's gonna go bad, right? When you have one is okay, right? The thing about data is the data can't be duplicated, but the minute that you duplicate data, it goes sideways, right? Whether it's lore, whether it's a whole planet of androids in Picard, like it's one is okay, more than one isn't. And I think when the Alito shows up and we're like, oh man, this is cool. But the minute that it's like, this is going to replace, people, you knew it went sideways. But also, Paul, you mentioned not feeling Freeman. I think that's an interesting comment because I'm looking and going, where does Freeman stack up in the pantheon of Star Trek captains?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And usually the show that we're watching, the captain is the star.
Sure.
This is
100%.
not the case in this one.
Yeah.
And I would say, and I'm going to take a lot of heat for this, I got to put her somewhere behind. I have to decide whether or not she's in front of or behind Archer as a captain.
Always with going back to Enterprise.
I mean, he's the worst Enterprise captain. I mean, he's the worst captain.
Well, here's the thing that it's part of the show, right? The show, in some ways, is reminiscent structurally of like Malcolm in the Middle, and the parents need to be a little not with it, right, for Malcolm in the Middle to work. Like, the kids have to be the people who are in control, and everyone else has to seem, at the very least, not all together with it. And I think in season 1 and season 2, it did a good balance of going like, oh, here is like, my mom being really crazy and not great, but then you flip it a little bit and you see, oh, she has a perspective. But in this season, at least for me, I feel like Freeman does a lot of things that are personal as opposed to for the good of, like she's going for the good of the Cali class. Like, I'm defending the Cali class, but with our journey with her, at least from my perspective, it's kind of personal for her. Like, she even goes to say, like, you think a computer can make better choices than I can, as opposed to humans. Like, it's like little touches like that where I feel like she's a little, or they've rendered her a little bit selfish in this, or less noble. That's probably the best way to describe it. But this might be where I get sent to the brig again. So,
I mean, I just think, like, I'm wondering though if there is like a way that you're putting her into these boxes, because it's just reading, like, I don't know, it's also like the discourse online, right? Like Michael Burnham and Captain Freeman, like Janeway, it's like these emotional women captains who are making choices that are deeply and more personal in comparison to what Kirk, who likes to sleep with everything that isn't deeply personal, choices being made, and love interests coming into account. And
I do understand, like, but I watched Janeway, and like, her personal, when I think of Janeway, because I'm watching Voyager again too.
Yeah.
And her personal comes from like a frustration almost always of like not being good enough for the task of bringing her crew back home. So like she'll be really impulsive, and she'll like roll the dice in some really major swings that, like, you're like, oh, that's a little reckless, and like you're all for that, but like, I don't think Burnham or Janeway, I can't think of a time when they're doing stuff for their own personal gain.
I wonder if it's because this is also the first time we're essentially seeing the B team captain.
Yeah, that could be absolutely it.
It's like you are the captain who almost in the same way that the admiral, right, is like, once you're an admiral, there's nowhere else to go. Whereas like, this is the first time we're essentially seeing a captain where there are other places she can go. Like, she can upgrade to other ships. She could go do all these other things.
100%. I mean, this is like, you make an excellent point. I would ask you this: would you rather see Freeman as captain or Mariner?
Mariner.
Oh, Freeman. Because here's the difference. Because I mean, she literally says that Mariner does not want to be captain, and you don't want to be under someone who doesn't want their job.
What she said was, "I don't know about that yet."
Right.
To me, that's growth, and I look at Mariner and go, "Mariner's your rookie, right? She's your number one draft pick rookie. She's not ready yet, but when she gets ready, she's gonna be amazing." And so, do you ride with her early so she gets some of that experience because she's gonna be Michael Burnham-esque? I might.
I don't know. I feel like Captain Tendy is probably more likely to occur.
Oh, like
before.
that's 100% right. I'm all for Captain Tendy.
I do
Mariner's
think
got first officer vibes though too.
very
Like,
first officer vibes.
100%, 100%.
She is a Frakes if I had ever seen a Frakes.
Oh yeah, she is definitely a Frakes. That's right.
Yeah, I think so. To get to my biggest nitpick of this whole episode is how quickly Mariner is self-aware of her desire to go back to Starfleet. And then how quickly Mariner forgives Boimler and like seemingly forgives her mom. And I thought I kind of wanted, I felt like we had so many good emotional moments this season. I wanted a better moment for Mariner's return. And it felt, I mean, it was celebratory, right? Like everyone was there. It's fun. You get to see all of the Cali classes together. A bunch of, smaller characters we've seen throughout the series are all here now. We get like the random crew, the crew with Fly Boimler.
Fly Boimler.
And all of that kind of stuff. But yeah, that was my only big nit to pick was I wanted a slow down, softer moment for some emotion there.
Like this is actually a very interesting thing because for me, like, and I've mentioned this before, like I feel like they're making Mariner, and in fact all the major cast, like they're really polishing off their flaws. Like Mariner doesn't make, she doesn't do anything wrong in the last two episodes, right?
Mm-hmm.
She goes and defends her crew. She gets like pounded down for that, sent to space station nowhere, and then like in this episode she goes and saves her crew. She is only the hero here.
Mm-hmm.
There is.
I'll take it a step farther, Paul. Not only she's the hero, even we, the audience, has assumed that she has ditched Starbase 80 to go do some nefarious criminal activity. And it turns out that she's funded by Admiral Picard to actually take back artifacts to give back to museums. Like, I don't know about you guys, but at first I was like, oh, that's got to be a cover for something. Even Mariner thought it, but in truth, so she literally does nothing wrong in these last few episodes. This whole season, she's really been playing it by the book. And so that's been an interesting journey for us watching Mariner.
Like my perspective is like, like I don't know how the future seasons will be, but like everyone now is like kind of like developed into who they're fully grown, if you will. I don't know if there needs to be emotional arc for everyone now, every season, and it seems like they just are gonna get into adventures, just like Star Trek, like the original series. Spock doesn't grow, McCoy doesn't grow. Like they have an emotional moment, like that Spock and McCoy, like have a bonding moment in one episode, and then in 2 episodes later, McCoy goes, "You green-blooded, blah 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 blah." So like and so
technically Picard very rarely grows.
100%. But
with the exception of early Picard was definitely cringy.
Fair.
And he became less cringy as the series went on.
Absolutely.
And I did, and for those of you who know us, I did not know that
until you rewatched.
It wasn't even the rewatch. It's that every time we did a rewatch or we did a special episode with Grant, we had to justify what it was he was seeing. And there was all of these apologies for Picard. It was kind of like, it's like, no,
yeah, because Grant was just like, Picard's like, kind of a dick.
Yes. And we're like, well, he was in this episode, but actually he's really great. And it just kept coming up over and over again. And you start to realize, no, okay. So there definitely was some growth there at some point.
So I imagine like the next season or the next seasons, you could have all 4 of them be exactly who they are, and it'll still be a fun season.
For sure.
And I don't know if there needs to be growth. Whereas like the way they set it up, like you knew that Boimler had to change. You knew that that Mariner had to change. Something was going. It could not work with them that way forever in Starfleet. So like I think that's cool. Like I think like it's it's a good arc. And now, like, will there be another arc? Maybe, but I don't know. There needs to be.
Yeah, we shall see. I have I think I checked. Did you watch all the way through to the post-credit scene, Paul?
I did.
So I think it's time for a Mariah prediction, which is, I think the Badgie eyepiece that's getting sucked up is going to cause some sort of chaos that's going to give us our crossover into Strange New Worlds.
I'd love that. I love that. Yeah.
Because the idea of getting to see Anson Mount having to do anything with Badgie brings me joy.
It's great. Like, I really loved, like, so like at the end credits, right? We see Badgie, the eyepiece, and then we see Badgie. But like in episode 6, in the Exobot episode, like the Peanut Hamper episode, like like in the credits, in the opening credits, you see Rutherford's eyepiece. So I was like, oh my god, they did it! They made it relevant in a way that I was just so happy to see. And I'm a big Badgie fan because, like, I'm crazy. I should be put.
Badgie is the Beetlejuice of Star Trek. I think if you say his name enough times, he has to show up.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think it's just Anyway, I for whatever reason, when I see Badgie, psychotic or not, it makes me smile.
Truly. But yes, ultimately, our crew is victorious after quite the space battle with the Texas class. I do think it's hilarious that this episode is called The Stars at Night, which is a lyric, if you don't know, from Deep in the Heart of Texas. Yes, which
I
is
did
played
not know
at
that. I did
almost all sporting events.
And you can't live in Texas for 3 minutes without knowing that it's law.
It is a law. They kick you out if you do not clap in the correct places for that song. So I found that very funny. I also I can't get out of here without reading off all of the names of the ships that came through. So we had the Alhambra, the Oakland, the Merced, the Sacramento, the Carlsbad, the Inglewood. We've seen all of those ships before. And then we get to the San Diego, the San Clemente, the Sherman Oaks, the Vacaville, the Burbank, Fresno, Santa Monica, San Jose, Culver City, Anaheim, Riverside, Vallejo, West Covina, which I thought was funny. West Covina got one. Pacific Palisades, Redding, Eureka, Mount Shasta. And I think that was it. And then, our Texas ships were the Dallas and the Corpus Christi. Oh, there's also the Bakersfield and the Ventura.
Yes.
Well, what was the name of the Sovereign class ship? I missed that. Like the Valkytter, is that what it was?
Oh.
Yeah, Van Kitters or Van Sitters or something like that.
Okay. Was that
John Van Sitters is the VP of Star Trek for Paramount.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
He got his ass kicked.
He did.
He did.
I also just a detail like that I really liked was that the Texas class had those Kelvin torpedoes from the Romulan ship from I really like the burst torpedoes there. I was like, oh, nice touch.
Yeah, there was sorry, my mind just went to Prodigy and I was like, wrong thing.
Before we go there, I thought one thing that was interesting is in the last couple episodes, a lot of people died.
Yeah.
Yes. Some heavy casualty episodes.
I wasn't expecting that for Star Trek, and I wasn't really expecting that for an animated show.
I wonder, because we've obviously seen lots of people taken out in some Star Trek episodes, and I wonder if it feels different because it's animated. You don't expect death in animation as often, I feel like.
Oh, like we see 2 people die, right? We see, we see Buen Amigo bite it ish, like it cuts before blood.
Yeah.
And we see that random shot where what you call it, like you see the space station get blown up and you see people, and I think that's about enough. I need.
But yeah, those ships are very destructive, much like Texas.
I wasn't going to say that.
It lives up to the name. Hey, just a reminder, if you do live in Texas, early voting has started, and it's a really important midterm election. Definitely check out the League of Women Voters for more information on how you can be an informed voter this voting season and vote all the way down the ballot, because your city council matters, your school board matters. All of that is important. Please, for the love of God, vote. We have a small chance of getting Beto in office, and it would be incredible. But alas, I cannot have my hopes up too high. Mariah prediction.
Mariah prediction.
Let's hope it's true. I don't know. I don't want that up. I don't want that up for me to say like Beto's gonna win, because most of my predictions are never right. Okay. Any other thoughts on Lower Decks before we jump over to Prodigy?
Oh, I think we covered it, and if there isn't, we'll talk about it later. But like,
Yep.
it was great.
I'm happy for Shax. That's my last thing I'll say. I really enjoyed watching him getting to eject the warp core. Okay, so Asylum for Prodigy. We're back, episode 11, mid-season. It was written by Kevin and Dan Hageman, our showrunner creators, directed by Steve In-Chen Ong and Soon Shin. And I think it is time once again for some hot freaks time, guys. What did you think of this kind of another premiere of Prodigy, essentially? Clyde? Paul?
Clyde.
Whomever.
I absolutely loved it. Despite, for those of you who've been listening to or watching the pod, you know how I feel about whales. I still loved it. I thought they got off to a really strong start. It was interesting. You had a number of really cool voice guest stars with Daveed Diggs and Jamil.
Jamila Jamil.
Yes, Jamila Jamil. You had Chakotay. You've got Janeway as more than just a hologram, but an actual Janeway. You got battle scenes and escape pods. Like, all in all, I really enjoyed this episode. I actually really enjoyed it again on the rewatch too. So, yeah, I wasn't quite sure about Prodigy, and trying to figure out, is this actually a show for children? But I really enjoyed this episode.
Yeah, I feel like it was, I would say, good. No, but it's just, it was good for me, and there's no but in the tone. This is a good episode. I don't know if I loved it as much as Clyde, but like, I thought it was great.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this episode. I was excited to get back into some time with these characters. I think all the voice actors are doing of our core group are really great, and I'm excited for the guest stars this season. I have mixed feelings about Chakotay, mostly because of the actor who portrays Chakotay has ruined it for me. But I'm choosing to just see him as Chakotay and not as Robert Beltran. And yeah, there was some laugh out loud moments for me. I too, Clyde, struggle with and I think it was on trekmovie.com, one of their reviews mentioned, like, I'm still struggling to figure out if this is a show for 8-year-olds and for 30-plus-year-old Star Trek fans.
Like, you asked me earlier if my children watch this, and the answer is no. At least not yet. I just, for young kids, it feels like it's, when I think about the stuff that they do watch, this is kind of sophisticated, right? It's not that dissimilar from Lower Decks, with the exception of the humor is much less adult, right? So I would say if you take Lower Decks and get rid of the edginess and kind of the nostalgia, you're close to Prodigy on a humor level.
Yeah. I mean, even in writing up the notes though for like our podcast tonight, like you can tell it's a kids show and just like the core simplicity of the story being told each episode, right? Like we have a very clear beginning, middle, and end. There's sort of a lesson weaved into it, right? It has all of those sort of like markers of a typical kids show. I would say I feel like if I don't know, it's like maybe if I was in that like 9 to 11 age range, this might be of interest. Perhaps it feels like when I started getting interested in like Pokemon in that era of my life, you know, where you have slightly more complicated storytelling, and some of the jokes are there for the adults in the room that go a little over your head, you know, like we're not quite at like Ren and Stimpy, but we're at like
Right.
or Hey Arnold, but yeah, I can see the appeal. I do think the animation, especially in that opening sequence, was beautiful. The like mermaid aqua people, really cool. I love the Save the Whale moment.
Just like Clyde. Clyde loves whales.
It made me chuckle.
I love whales. I don't love whales in Star Trek.
In the future, you don't like whales in the future. You want them.
No, I like whales. I save the whales. I'm just saying this whole concept of
that's Clyde's hashtag. Save the whales. I'm just saying.
I'm just saying. Hashtag Save the Whales.
I'm just saying. Save the whales.
But we have essentially jumped a few weeks into the future. This is after our crew, if you are catching up, have rescued and broke everyone out of the Tars Lamora, escaping the Diviner, who they are assuming is no longer with us anymore. I did like that they get a good moment to sort of reintroduce all of the characters by going through the scanner at the starbase that they eventually get to. And I thought it was very funny that the guy kept being like the final frontier, and they're just like, we don't get your joke.
Why does he keep saying that?
That was a moment I was like, these are lines made for Star Trek fans. This is funny. Yeah.
It's one of those things where, like, did either of you ever watch? Probably, Mariah, you might be a little young for this. Robotech on TV as opposed to on cable.
So everything in me wants to go, what are you saying about me, Paul? But the answer to that question is yes.
So it's only being a jerk if I'm wrong.
Yes, I watched Robotech on when it was on TV.
Free to air, right?
Yes, Saturday. It was like a Saturday morning or afternoon or something.
How old were you?
I mean, I had to be about. I was young.
Yeah, and I was young too when I watched it, and that was probably
aired in '85.
Okay, yeah, definitely in the '80s.
I watched it. I was young and I watched it live. So yes.
but that was my first serialized cartoon, and this is basically serialized cartoon storytelling, and I was able to absorb it. Like, I might not have gotten all the comedy or all the innuendos when people were hooking up, but you absorb it at the level that you can absorb it, I think.
Paul, that's a really good point, because I've gone back once, maybe twice, maybe more than twice, and rewatched Robotech. It's sophisticated.
Yeah, no,
there's complicated storylines. You've got war. There's a lot of stuff going on, and to your point, you
loved it, didn't you? You were into it. Yeah.
It's basically a transformer with guns. So yes, I absolutely loved it.
So I can't put myself in a 9-year-old's head right now, right? But like, I look at myself back at that age. I go like, oh, I could absorb things that hit me on whatever I could absorb. And so if you show how old are your kids, Clyde?
I got an 11 and a 5-year-old.
Like, I imagine if you showed the Prodigy to the 11-year-old, they will either go, "This is dumb," and just reject it completely, or they go like, "Oh, I love this," and they absorb it for what it is.
I don't. She doesn't love it. I'm interested in reintroducing it to her, but I think for the very principles that you mentioned about Robotech, which I think is a really great analogy. I was going to be into Robotech because I was into transforming vehicles, right?
Yep.
Like robots, vehicles, and a little bit of a love story. You had me. So you could have called it whatever you wanted to. It could have been transforming buses, and I was probably on board. I think similarly, if you like space and sci-fi and you're a kid, then there's a good chance that you may love Prodigy.
Mhm.
So all you 11-year-olds listening to our podcast, give Prodigy a try.
Get on the Prodigy train. To remind everyone of our main characters here, and there's some fun, cute moments with all of them. We get Jankum learns that he's a Telluride, and they are a founding member of the Federation, which just adds to his ego. We have Rock, the Brickar, Gwen, not detected, and then Dahl just says report to Starfleet Command. We obviously know Zero is oh my gosh, I just blanked.
Medusan.
Oh, what? Medusan, yes. And then we get confirmation Murph is a melanoid slime worm.
Yeah, not
to be confused with
melanoma.
An insult thrown at Wesley Crusher.
I mean, I thought it was cool that they took a moment to identify everyone and even gave Dahl a moment to say, hey, no, you have a history. Like you are known. Exactly. Like that was a great moment. Yeah. And still keeping it a secret.
Yeah, Chippy brought up, apparently there's a wild theory going around that Dahl is Janeway and Tom's offspring, and that thing detected their DNA.
I hope that is true.
That would be wild.
I hope that's true. Like lizards growing up to be, like overreaching teenagers. Love it.
Yeah. I'm gonna call a no, but that's
wait. Do a Mariah prediction. No.
No. That's gonna be a no for Mariah. But I wanted to get into, so essentially, like the core of this episode is the ship. There's something going on with the ship when it connects to other Starfleet technology, right? Mm-hmm. And so our crew is trying to rejoin Starfleet, and the ship is like, no. And we keep getting these flashbacks from Gwen's father, the diviner, saying that something is a weapon. Do y'all have any theories as to what happened between Chakotay taking off with the protostar into the Delta Quadrant and it becoming this weapon against Starfleet?
Clyde?
I'm gonna say no, because I think I know a little bit too much.
Okay. Noted.
I'm gonna say no.
As a person who knows not very much, I assume that the way that it's laid out, and I hope that I'm wrong because it seems a little simplistic. Chakotay goes to Delta Quadrant, gets intercepted, gets captured. Some super virus gets loaded up to the protostar, and before it gets sent back to Starfleet, Chakotay hides it. That's what I feel like it's set up to be.
Right, but, and now he's stuck in the Delta Quadrant again forever.
or he's
yeah.
but that's I'm guessing, I'm just guessing.
I was like, are we really gonna have death in the kids show? Yeah, I don't know.
Exactly. That'll be interesting. So how'd you guys feel about seeing the diviner again floating?
I mean, he's a fun villain, so I'm excited that we're not totally done with him. I find his the relationship between him and Gwen to be interesting and compelling, and I want to know more about their existence between each other. And I think Gwen will have some way of it feels like Gwen to me will have a big hero moment this season is kind of what I'm thinking, but I am enjoying Dahl's growth and sort of being a bit more of a humble leader thus far, right?
I mean, so a couple things to piggyback off of that. One, I was actually happy at the thought of him not being in the season.
Wait, is this all season one, or is it?
This is all season one. Yeah. It's an extended order.
Yeah,
it's a way for them to not pay animators more money. Oop.
I yeah, I was actually looking forward. I was like, oh, we're past that. This is something different. But to your point, he is a good big bad. And when you have a good big bad, you shouldn't toss them away. Because I think one of the things that we've learned is when you toss away a good big bad thinking that you'll just come up with another one, that doesn't usually work out that well. And then it becomes this just kind of serial episode of the week kind
Mhm.
of thing. So to your point, while I was happy that he was gone, it will make for better television.
Like,
Um,
just to interject, like my real question is that, like, like the series kind of starts off with this assumption, like it's gonna be a little bit like Voyager, where they're far away from the Federation and they're going to
Mhm.
head towards Federation. With the Protostar, that is not the case.
Mhm.
And so, what's the show going to be? That's why I don't know. Like, like if
Yeah.
they're in the Federation space, if they're at the edge of Federation space, what does that mean?
I mean, it seems like they're setting up they essentially have to keep away from the Federation because whatever is on the ship could destroy the Federation, which is interesting that they're then having to both stay away from the good guys and the bad guys in a way.
Because, like, I mean, like, the solution then is just blow up the Protostar, right? You're at,
Seemingly.
and then
Maybe, but it has a star core, so who knows what that would do once you blew it up.
sure, but I'm just saying, like, you blow up the ship, you take a bus to Starfleet. That's it.
But then that's not good TV, Paul.
no,
I understand, but, like, also good TV, like, is
It's
basically
like how
having.
Seinfeld would be solved if everyone had cell phones.
Okay. I know the way to the brig.
no. You know what else?
No, I know.
What dawned on me is when we talk about growth, I like the growth of Dahl.
Mhm.
Right?
Sure,
Like
yeah,
it wasn't that long ago where I found him really annoying as a captain. And again,
Mhm.
as a reluctant captain. And somehow he seemed to really have grown up and now seems worthy of sitting in this seat. Though I really see him as a cadet captain,
Yeah.
but he seems much more worthy of like bringing people together and not running away from this responsibility.
Yeah. I'm excited to see where Dahl goes. I'm enjoying Gwen also sort of figuring out herself outside of her dad's sort of systems and outside of any systems really. And I think the chemistry between all of the core group is so far really great. Apparently, they've teased we're going to get some sort of Murph evolution this season. So we'll see if he stays
It's interesting you say
in
that
his
because I
current
thought
form.
when we saw the transparent mermaid, I thought those were like, oh, is that what Murph grows up to be?
That would be wild.
That would
Um,
be wild.
some other things I found really fun in this episode was the hot dog replicator scene and when it started just throwing hot dogs at them. I always love a replicator on the fritz. I think it's very funny.
That
Like,
felt very kid
Yeah.
Mickey Mouse like show to me, and I was like, that's fun.
like for me, the thing that was really interesting was the space bridge right between the ship and the
Mm-hmm.
and my first thought was like, wow, that's really cool, and I would be very uncomfortable walking across that.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what we can appreciate about the childlike nature
Mhm.
of our crew is that they embody a part of us that is real. Because when Jangum Pog puts that foot out there and taps it, that's what
Mm-hmm.
most of us would do. If this is your first time stepping on that, you're not gonna have the right stuff walk where
No.
you're just all walking like
I do
all
that on
confident.
skyscrapers that have those like little windows you can look down on. I'm like, I'm not just putting my full weight on this immediately. I'm going to do a little tap first.
Yes, and that makes sense. So, to me, that's the type of writing that really captures, like the reality of the situation. Like there was no words, no dialogue, but the fact that he tapped it, I was able to identify with. There's a lot of little touches in the show that I appreciate.
What else? Oh, Jenkum is funny to me when he goes to throw up in the bin. Jenkum needs to relocate some chunks. That felt very kid fun. Kids love a good throw up joke, right?
Yeah.
Michael L.
Yes,
says,
I do. Wait, no. Yes, I do. That was the appropriate response. You're getting so old, Paul.
I liked how Gwen saved herself from the flooding medical container. She wasn't helpless. Female character in need of saving. Yes. Let's see.
But what I also liked about that is that while she did save herself, her entire
Was there
friend
trying to
crew,
help her. Mhm.
yeah, they were all there to try and save her. But yes, she saved herself. So it was. I love that scene. I really did love that scene.
Whale. Overall, I thought it was a fun reboot premiere episode. I'm excited to see where things go. I feel like they've set a lot of things in motion. I'm glad they did a bit of a time jump for this. I think it helps kind of bridge the gap between the two, so you don't feel like you've just been waiting for like the next day. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was smart.
And I really love the space whales because whales, I'm just saying.
Need to be saved. All right, y'all. Anything else about this episode of Prodigy?
I have one minor quibble about. I was just thinking about Lower Decks, and that's when the Dallas class were shooting phasers at warp, and and generally that is not that's not done. That's why photon torpedoes were invented because phasers dissipate during warp field, and and unless you are in the Kelvin universe. And I know this is very boring, so I apologize.
So we're on a Star Trek podcast.
You're literally in the one place, Paul, where this is not boring.
If you're having this conversation at a bar, stop. Right. But here,
this is how I pick up ladies. Like I go, hey, phasers don't work in a warp field.
There's a place where that works. This is that place.
So I'm watching Lower Decks. And they fire the phasers, and I get like this flashback to 91 or whatever, Next Generation. The Enterprise D tech manual comes out, and I'm reading about phasers and photon torpedoes, and this is a whole paragraph. So it's like imagine like you're watching me watch a show, phasers come in, and then the Ratatouille moment with. Me looking at the man goes, that's not right. Anyway,
perhaps because they're the fully automated versions, they have upgraded weapon systems. That would be very Texan to have upgraded weapon systems.
100%. And to be fair, the Venger, in the Kelvin universe, was able to fire phasers in warp. So it's not unprecedented, but I just feel like they did not abide by that tech manual. Which, it's neither here nor there. It's just a statement.
I mean, they're not Enterprise Ds either.
Yeah, this is fair. I'm not.
We're gonna have to get some manuals on some Texas class and some Cali class ships.
There we go.
Figure it out. Anything else, Clyde? Paul? Thoughts?
No, I'm done.
All right. Extra long episode for everybody tonight. This was super fun. I'm excited for more Prodigy next week. You can find us back here again live on Thursday on YouTube talking Star Trek Prodigy, the podcast releasing the day after. You can subscribe, rate, and review on Apple. You can also rate the show on Spotify as long as you listen, I think, to the first minute and a half of the episode. So you can do that over there too. Visit StarTrekPod.co to get links and more, as well to find our Patreon, where you can come hang out with us in the Slack channel, where I told everyone they needed to watch till the end credits. So you can get some fun insider information. Clyde, how else can people find us on the internet?
Check us out at Star Trek Pod on Twitter. Shout out to Karen, who helps run our Twitter.
Yes, thank you, Karen. We appreciate you so much. Thanks for joining us tonight on the Star Trek Discovery Pod. Live long and prosper, y'all. Good night.
Pew, 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 pew.